We are so close to getting Frank Castle back in the MCU, and I am so excited. Getting the boy back. Frank Castle, the Punisher, has been around for so long, so this is like a very quick and brief rundown of his character since he's been around since like the 1970s.
What about you, Frank? What happens the day someone decides you deserve it?
Tell you what, they better not miss.
You run around this city like it's your damn shooting gallery.
Yeah, what do you do? What do you do?
Frank Castle was born in Queens in New York City, and while he was a pretty good kid, even though he was socially awkward, he still had an issue with anger and violence. But he also had a love of reading that he got from his mother, but also a weird love for apex predators that kind of leads into who he becomes later as the Punisher. After witnessing the death of a couple, he actually goes and finds the mafia members who killed that couple and kills them at 10 years old. And not only does he kill them, he sets them on fire, which is a trend in these Daredevil characters that I keep doing. While in high school, he actually took up hockey at the suggestion of his best friend, and that's where he met his future wife, who definitely helped calm his anger and violence issues, which is nice. That is until his best friend died in a car accident, and Frank does the only reasonable thing and tracks down the people responsible for the car accident and kills them. While his wife is pregnant with their first child, he actually joins the Marine Corps and trains under Captain America, who is kind of his idol. He did, because this is when Marvel started, end up fighting in Vietnam, alongside Ben Grimm's, Reed Richards, Tony Stark. Tony has been like retconned since then, so he's not a veteran of the Vietnam War, but Frank still is, which makes him really old. But it also makes him an interesting character because he is so old. When he returned from deployment, he was actually really distant from his family because of the trauma, going as far as to sleep in the backyard in a tent. And as healing isn't linear, he ends up going back and forth between doing better and relapsing and doing worse. So he tries to get along with his kids again and spend time with them, and he gets a job in the meatpacking district to try to like support his family, but it ends up just, it's that constant like struggle of healing. And Maria ends up planning to ask for a divorce. Or she would have if the day and time and place that she planned to do so didn't involve her getting killed. This is where, if you know anything about the Punisher, his family is killed in the middle of Central Park because of a mafia attack, leaving him the sole survivor of his family. This leaves Frank the only survivor, as I had said, but is also deeply traumatizes him. Even though he wanted to stand up and testify in court against this mafia that killed his family, he couldn't because the NYPD was so deeply entwined with that mafia that it just wouldn't work. That is when he vows to spend the rest of his life avenging his family and takes up the mantle as the Punisher. And one of the things as the Punisher is that he doesn't value himself as a hero. He has never become the Punisher to be a hero. He knows that, and he will not feel guilt for that either. He knows that he wants to punish the worst of humanity, which is what he does. But he also knows that that is very different than what heroes like Captain America, Iron Man, all these people do. He is not a hero. And that is why he usually, this is silly, but that's why he usually tells people not to use his symbol, because they don't want to be like him. They want a symbol to like represent them. They want Captain America. They want anybody but him, because that's not what, he's not a hero. He's not an icon. Don't do that. But he knows he is not a role model, and he does not intend to change his ways until he dies or is killed. He has had a long and extensive history in Marvel. He was introduced in 1973 in an Amazing Spider-Man comic. So there is a lot of ground to cover. So I'm gonna kind of cherry pick things to kind of make a cohesive story, but it does not mean that everything that Frank Castle has ever done is in this video. So to speed it up though, a lot of the time he is in and out of jail. He is arrested and then escapes, and he is arrested and escapes. It's a lot of Frank Castle. So I will probably brief over unless something interesting happens while he's there, but he's in and out of jail a lot because he is a vigilante, so, and he is murdering people, so it is still a crime. He does meet Matt Murdock when he is going after a drug lord, and that drug lord is then being defended by Nelson and Murdock. Daredevil and Punisher end up working together to try to take down that drug lord, but then Daredevil shoots Frank and then takes him to jail, so that's a whole thing. But after escaping this prison, he ends up going and vowing to take down Kingpin, and he kind of goes a little crazy because he was drugged in prison and is just kind of, so he's not himself, and he ends up attacking anybody who is doing any crime, which is including petty crime, which means he is attacking people for littering and jaywalking and all this stuff. It's not even just the worst of the worst, it's just anybody who has ever committed a crime. He does sneak into Kingpin's headquarters and he threatens Vanessa and is almost beaten to death by Kingpin because of this. He ends up going to prison and going to trial for those those crimes. And at this trial, they try to debate whether or not the death of his family and the trauma he got from that is enough to plead insanity. And after hearing that, Frank fully breaks down and they end up sending him to a psychiatric ward because they deem him unfit to stand trial. And when he ends up at the psychiatric ward, the drugs that were given to him in prison do wear off, and he is pretty much right as rain and breaks out of the prison they moved him to when they decided he could go back to a normal prison. That was in 1986, so it's been 1973 to 1986. That's been 13 years. So I'm kind of skipping kind of rapidly in his stuff to figure out what would be kind of important in Born Again coming up. And in 1994, so 21 years? I'm not good at math. He has lost his sanity once more. He's actually lashed out at people in his like network. He doesn't have like allies per se, but he does have like a network of things that he gets his intel from and his weapons and stuff. And he starts lashing out at them and believes that Nick Fury is the person who killed his family and not the mafia members he has been going after for so long. And so his vengeance has shifted to the superhero community instead of criminals. He's also done a lot since then. He was a part of the Civil War, only jumping in when the government starts getting super-powered criminals to start enforcing their laws. And he ends up siding with Captain America and the Secret Avengers. And he was also present in New York for the Skrull invasion in Secret Invasion. He also was Frankenstein's monster for a little bit, and they called him Frankencastle. He ended up dying and being resurrected by Morbius into this Frankenstein monster creature, but then he was turned back by Elsa Bloodstone by the Bloodstones, so sure, cool, fun little funky Marvel side quest. He also joined Thunderbolts, but he was betrayed by the teammates there. The whole Thunderbolts team ends up disbanding. He's done a lot. So, but I do think firmly that with Daredevil Born Again coming up, that insanity, maybe thinking superheroes were the cause of things, especially because of Muse being in it and Punisher being blamed for a lot of the stuff that Muse did in the comics, might be something that they take from. So he might not be as sane as we've seen him in the past, especially because we already saw him attacking Matt, not really knowing that it was Matt. I do think we'll get a little bit of an unhinged Frank Castle. I hope you like this, and if you want to see more like this, please let me know in the comments below. Let me know what your favorite Netflix Marvel show is, because I would like to know. Mine's Jessica Jones. I love Jessica, and Kilgrave is the most terrifying villain ever. That's my favorite. But let me know yours in the comments down below. And remember to like and comment and subscribe and follow us, and we will see you guys next time. Bye. Stay geeky.